is giving feedback from their most recent NEC meeting. The National Executive Committee at the podium is the Secretary General of the party. Let's listen in.
Our movement conveys its warmest greetings to the Muslim community of South Africa and across the world on this auspicious occasion of Eid al-Adha, Eid Mubarak. May this season of sacrifice and reflection carry peace, blessing, and renewed purpose into every home and into every heart. The NEC of the ANC, the highest decision-making body of the ANC between national conferences, met in ordinary session at the Protea Hotel at OR Tambo Airport in Ekurhuleni on Saturday 23rd, Sunday 24th May. The NEC had a successful and productive meeting. The NEC is fully united on the conditions that obtain in our country today and fully united on what lies ahead. We leave that meeting with a single line of march focused on local government elections, November 4, 2026, focused on fixing local government and focused on the work the ANC owes the people of South Africa in this season. The NEC is fully united. The NEC is at work. The ANC is leading in the clean-up of the state institutions of our republic. The NEC received the political overview of the President of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, on the central theme of fixing local government. It received the report of the National Working Committee, the report of the Electoral Committee, the Consolidated Provincial Weekly Status Reports, the report of the Integrity Commission, and other housekeeping matters. The NEC took decisions on every substantive matter the reports placed before it. Today, I will speak to the public-facing decisions of the meeting in the time available. The central frame of the period before the ANC is the local government elections, 163 days from today. The ANC enters that contest with the disciplined work of its structures in every region, every province, and every branch of the ANC, focused on the outcome, a credible, capable, and renewed ANC at the side of every community of our republic. Delivering on local government promise, the Freedom Charter has carried since 1955. Fixing local government is not a slogan for this period. It is the work of the period. The President's political overview placed the matter squarely before the NEC, and the NEC adopted decisions on every operational front. I turn to those decisions now. On local government, the communities, the infrastructure, and the mayors, the NEC has confirmed the priority of the 8 municipalities under active interministerial committee on the management and performance turnaround strategy intervention, and has directed the Northwest Provincial Executive Committee to table a Northwest Stabilization Plan. The Local Government Action Plan, 6 months in operation, has been ratified in its current pillar ratings. The NEC Subcommittee on Local Government Interventions has been directed to segment the work into short-term, medium-term, and long-term horizons within 14 days. On infrastructure, the NEC has directed every deployee of the ANC in government to prioritize the delivery of infrastructure projects in roads, water, and electricity. These are immediate things that touch the lives of our people, where water scarcity is highly felt. The NEC resolved that there should be no community without water, and the immediate implementation of underground borehole and spring water connection must be rolled out with immediate effect. On the cost of living and the 10-point plan for the economy, the pressures of the international situation translate in this country into rising prices at the petrol pump, rising prices on the supermarket shelf, and rising stress in our communities. The National Executive Committee is alive to this reality and to the daily strain it places upon the working and the unemployed people of South Africa. The ANC commends Comrade Enoch Godongwana, Minister of Finance, for the boldness and immediacy with which he read the conjuncture arising from the war on the Islamic Republic of Iran, and for the decisive intervention he took on the fuel levy. That decision has cushioned the consumer at the petrol pump and has cushioned the taxi commuter on the way to work, has cushioned the small trader at the loading dock, and has cushioned every household for whom transport and fuel are a major contributor to the cost of living. This is the ANC government at work, reading the international conjuncture in real time and acting in defense of the working and the unemployed people of our country. The NEC further resolved to redouble the work of the ANC in government on the 10-point plan for the economy, to drive the South African economy from its present growth path onto a job-creating growth trajectory. The 10-point plan is the operational program that carries the economy, policy direction of the 55th National Conference and the National General Council 2025 base document into the work of the state. Its pillars: fixed investment acceleration, infrastructure delivery, industrial policy, township and rural economy development, the just energy transition, the digital economy, food security, BRICS Plus and continental trade integration, skills and the demographic dividend, and macroeconomic stability are the work of the period. The ANC will measure itself in this conjuncture by the speed and the seriousness with which the plan moves from paper into lived improvement in the conditions of the people. On economic transformation and broad-based black economic empowerment, the NEC commends the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development for the boldness with which she has heard the line of march set by the January 8 statement of 2026, that this is the year to fix local government and to push harder on the transformation of the economy, and for the directness with which she has acted upon it in the legal sector. Broad-based black economic empowerment is the law of the Republic. It applies to every professional sector, to legal practice, to medical practice, to engineering, to accounting, to architecture, to the consulting professions, and across every domain in which the economy of our country is conducted. Income equality and the equity of ownership are not optional ornaments of our constitutional order. They are the substance of the second radical phase of the National Democratic Revolution, as confirmed at the 55th National Conference at Nazareth in 2017 and reaffirmed in the National General Council base document. The ANC carries this work forward without apology and without retreat. Where the law is in place, it must be applied. Where the law requires sharpening, it will be sharpened. The ANC commends the Minister, and we commend every comrade in government and in the institutions of the state who is now placing this line of march into effect. On the cleaning up of state institutions, the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference and Corruption in the criminal justice system, headed by retired Constitutional Court Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga, will table its second interim report to the President of the Republic on Friday, 29 May 2026, this week. The final report of the Commission is due on Sunday, 31st August 2026. The Parliamentary Ad hoc Committee on the allegations related to the South African police continues its work. The ANC reaffirms, in the clearest terms, the leading role of the ANC in the cleanup of state institutions of our Republic. The Madlanga Commission was established by the President of the Republic. The Ad hoc Committee is led by members of Parliament of the ANC, the National Prosecuting Authority, the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, the Hawks, the South African Revenue Service, the Asset Forfeiture Unit, the Financial Intelligence Center, and the Auditor General, with its expanded material irregularity powers, are doing the work that the country requires of them. It is the ANC that builds the laws fighting corruption. It is the ANC that strengthens those laws and never weakens them. It is the ANC that is even prepared to have matters that may be reputationally damaging aired in public because we are serious about renewal. It is the ANC that is the principal author of the laws now fighting corruption in our country. The Prevention and Combating of Corruption Activities Act of 2004, the Prevention of Organized Crime Act of 1998, the Financial Intelligence Center Act of 2001, the Protected Disclosures Act of 2000, the Public Audit Amendment Act of 2018 with its material irregularity powers, the National Strategic Intelligence Act, and many others. It is the ANC that continues to strengthen these laws and not weaken them. It is the ANC that is prepared to have matters which may be reputationally damaging aired in public, because we are serious about renewal and because we are serious about ridding ourselves and our country of all forms of corruption and unethical conduct. It is the ANC at times alone and at times together with the people of South Africa that has built this country, that has built its constitutional framework, and that has built its democratic institutions. We say openly that the ANC will return the South African Police Service to a constitutional footing as a service department of and for the people of the Republic. The demilitarization of the structures and the uniform of the South African Police Service is the agenda the ANC carries into the period ahead and into the work of the criminal justice system, reform that the Madlanga Commission and the Ad hoc Committee will speak to. On the national health insurance, the Constitutional Court delivered judgment on May 18, 2026 in solidarity, trade union and others against Minister of Health, declaring the certificate of need provisions at sections 36 to 40 of the National Health Act 1961 of 2003 unconstitutional. The NEC has reaffirmed in the clearest terms the ANC's full support for the National Health Insurance Act 15 of 2024 and for the phased and lawful implementation now underway. Comrade Motsoaledi, Health Minister, is commended for the disciplined manner in which the department continues with the implementation. The certificate of need provisions sit in a different act from the National Health Insurance Act. The unconstitutional declaration of certain provisions in one act does not in law or in fact displays the constitutional validity and the lawful implementation of the National Health Insurance Act 15 of 2024. The NEC commends the Minister of Health and the entire Department of Health for the steady, disciplined work being carried out across the public health system in this period, on the rollout of the National Health Insurance, on the country's vigilance against the regional outbreak of Ebola in the equatorial countries to our north, on the tuberculosis program, which remains the largest national tuberculosis program in the world, on the continuing gains in the combat against the human virus. The ANC reaffirms the historic position of the ANC, drawn from the Freedom Charter of 1955 and given constitutional form in Section 27 of the Constitution of the Republic, a publicly funded, universal, equitable system of health care for all who live in our country. The NEC spent substantial time discussing and evaluating the question of the present mobilization against unlawful migrant communities in our country. The NEC finds that the issues raised by the activist community are in the main genuine complaints and genuine demands. The NEC that have emerged across our country are in the main demanding a visible government and a visible state. The ANC is calling for our government to act with a sense of visible purpose on the issues that touch our people directly. The NEC does not characterize the majority of these activities as xenophobic, because xenophobic is something that equals to hate crime and is condemned universally by laws of the United Nations. And we believe that South Africans are not xenophobic. There are those among these groupings who gravitate to hatred, and which is dangerous for our country. We cannot, as a country, be proud of being labeled as a country that is xenophobic, a country that fought apartheid and defeated it with the support of others, and apartheid defined as a heinous crime against humanity, the same as xenophobia. That is why the anti-racist conference was held here in South Africa and adopted important resolutions in our country in Durban. The NEC understands the pressures on our economy and on our communities arising from unlawful immigration. And the NEC shares the concerns of the people of South Africa on these matters. The NEC, however, cautions the organizers and the leaders of the ANC to be vigilant against third force infiltration of their ranks. The discipline of lawful protest is the discipline of every South African in our democracy. The conduct of vigilantism, hate speech, and intimidation that the country has seen in some of its streets and some of its clinic doors and some of its school gates and some of its factory floors over the past period is in its proper legal characterization the conduct that falls within the Prevention and Combating of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Act, Act 16 of 2003. A child that seeks education must be supported by all of us. A child that seeks immunization against measles or polio must be given the necessary support. We are not a cruel people. A child that does not get these vaccines will be a danger to the community. The ANC supports the application of hate crimes and hate speech acts by the National Prosecuting Authority and by the South African Police on every act that meets its provisions. When we protest and when we mount pressure movements, which is our constitutional right and the standing tradition of our struggle. We urge our people to balance their actions with the discipline of legality. We cannot fight unlawful conduct in a democracy by ourselves engaging in unlawful conduct. We must together safeguard the reputation, the image and the stability of our country so that we do not end up causing more harm than the harm we set out to address. We are a great people among the peoples of the world. We are called upon by our forebears to make demands but to remain humane, to protest but to carry Ubuntu in our hands, to agitate progressively but to remember our own long road to freedom. And the road our continent walked with us on that journey, to leave weapons at home and not carry them in public, to respect our traditions like the traditions of Amabuto and not misuse these great heritage instruments in a manner that causes disrepute to our pride as South Africans. Let me be clear, the demands placed on our government to act decisively on the question of border management, on the national security issues that arise, on the strain on our people and our communities, at the confluence of unlawful immigration and all its manifestations, from human trafficking to illicit trade, from crime to the corruption of government officials in Home Affairs and the South African Police Service. These demands are genuine, and these demands are real, and the government is at work on every one of them. The NEC further calls upon the private sector, upon the employers, upon the recruitment agencies, upon every enterprise operating on the soil of the Republic to adhere without exception to the labor laws and to the immigration laws of the country. The recruitment of undocumented workers in order to suppress wages, to circumvent the Labor Relations Act, to evade the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, to undermine the sectoral determinations of the Minister of Employment and Labour, and to displace the rightful claims of South African workers and of legally resident workers on the job market is criminal. It is unpatriotic. It is a direct subversion of the laws of our country and of the spirit of national reconstruction that the Constitution of the Republic enjoins upon every sector in our economy. The ANC places the private sector squarely on notice. The ANC in government will pursue, through the Department of Employment and Labour and through the National Prosecuting Authority, through the South African Revenue Service, and through the Labour Inspectorate, every enterprise that profits from this practice. The cost of compliance with the law is borne by the lawful employer and by the lawful worker. The ANC government will ensure that those who externalize that cost onto our communities and onto our country pay the full weight of the law. The President of the Republic has announced the rolling out of 10,000 additional posts in the Department of Employment and Labour to be filled and trained as labour inspectors. The President of the Republic announced the rolling out of tens of thousands of additional posts, I wish to repeat, in the Department of Employment and Labour. These 10,000 new positions will be filled and trained as labour inspectors. There will be South African inspectors empowered to intercept the unlawful employment of any person not authorized by South African law to be employed by enterprises operating in our country. Where an employer is found undercutting our labor laws, the inspectorate will act. We ask our people once again to refrain from taking the law into their own hands. When we do so, we allow critics to call us names, shame us as vigilante society. The Border Management Authority has commenced a build program to upgrade at least 6 of our principal border posts and the surrounding infrastructure. The upgrade introduces technology and a modernized interface capable of tracking and tracing any tourist who overstays the lawful period of stay and any person who enters for a short-term stay and then declines to leave. The technology includes smart drone capability operating in real time, monitoring every kilometer of South African border. The Special Investigating Unit continues its mandate to rid the Department of Home Affairs of officials who place our people at risk by selling undeserved official documentation. The Hawks and the National Prosecuting Authority continue their cases. The work on the South African Police Service is publicly before the country on the television screens to rid the service of bribe takers and of officers involved in syndicate crime and to move them from the service directly into the cells of the Department of Correctional Services. The NEC urges the Department of Home Affairs to consider, with appropriate agency, the reintroduction of quota limits on immigration intake. Our country must decide transparently and in the public interest how many additional persons that means at its disposal can lawfully and humanly accommodate. The instrument exists in our law, Section 19 of the Immigration Act, 13 of 2002, provides the framework. The NEC also encourages South Africans to engage in the public participation processes of Parliament on bills now before the legislature. Among these bills are bills that will protect the rights of every South African to create and to operate the enterprise. The constitutional right at Section 22 of our Constitution and bills that will close the route by which a person travels through several safe countries on the journey to our republic and only applies for asylum or refugee status on arrival here. The principle of first safe country is a principle of international refugee law, and the legislative reform now underway will give it operational effect in South Africa. And there are many examples we can give. When we got Palestinians coming to our country via Israel and dropped in our country, just like that. And therefore, this particular principle did not actually apply in that particular instance. So tendencies of infiltration and undermining our national security architecture must be taken into consideration. The President of the Republic of South Africa travels to Egypt for the mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union held at El Alamein from Wednesday 24th to Saturday 27th June 2026. The ANC, through the government of the Republic, will table at El Alamein the foundations of a continental compact on migration in Africa. Because the question of illegal migration, immigration, and migration is not only our problem, it's a global and continental issue. A framework paper that moves the continental conversation from the registration of accusation to the registration of shared responsibility. The compact is the African answer to a continental question. We will not allow our country to be reduced to a single line of caricature on a question that is the continent's question and the world's question together. The NEC urges every provincial premier in the Republic to activate a quick response team on immigrant tensions in their province, working in concurrence with SAPS, the Prosecuting Authority and the Department of Home Affairs, the Department of Social Development, the Provincial Disaster Management Centers, and the National Disaster Management Center. On the evictions in the Western Cape, the NEC has received the matter of the farm labourers' evictions taking place in the Western Cape. The Secretary General's office will further engage the Western Cape Provincial Task Team of the ANC to develop and advance a program of action on the evictions question. The ANC does not stand by while the people of our republic are removed from their land and from their homes. On the international situation, Iran, Palestine, and Lebanon, the NEC reflected on the international situation, on the urgency of a just, durable, and political resolution to the multiple conflicts now bearing down on humanity. The path of war is not the path of solution. There are people who say we preoccupy ourselves with things outside the country, but we're not concerned about what happens here. What happens in Iran today has affected us in terms of the cost of living. And that is why we talk about cushioning an ordinary South African in terms of the fuel levy by government. The war on the Islamic Republic of Iran is a matter of the gravest concern to the ANC and to our country. The ANC, in the tradition of Comrade Oliver Tambo and the Harare Declaration of 1989, calls on all parties, the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the government of the US and Israel, the governments of Arab states, the government of the major powers, and the multilateral institutions seated under the United Nations Charter to choose the path of negotiation and to set aside the path of arms. The escalation of armed action between great power blocs in the Middle East places the global economy under strain, places African economies under strain, and places ordinary households in our country under strain through the rising cost of fuel, the rising cost of staples, and the rising cost of credit. The NEC commends Comrade Ronald Lamola, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, for the discipline and the principled clarity with which South African diplomacy carried itself at the recent BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting. The ANC places on record its appreciation to the Minister and his team for the work that placed our country firmly on the side of dialogue, of multilateralism, of the United Nations Charter, and of the rule of international law in these trying times. The NEC further calls for a political solution to the continuing war on the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. The ANC reaffirms the standing position of the South African government before the International Court of Justice in the matter of South Africa against Israel. The genocide must end, the occupation must end, and the two-state solution must be brought into effect. The ANC notes with deepest pain the continued invasion of the sovereign territory of Lebanon and the resulting suffering inflicted upon the civilian populations of southern Lebanon. We call on all parties to seek a peaceful, negotiated solution to the difficulties of the region. On provincial task teams in Eastern Cape and in Gauteng, the special meeting of the NEC convened in Cape Town on Wednesday, 13 May 2026, took the decision that provincial task teams must be established in the Eastern Cape and in Gauteng, in place of the provincial executive committees, whose term, in particular in the Eastern Cape, have expired without a provincial conference having set. The special NEC left the implementation and the formulation of the membership to the National Working Committee. The NEC that met this past weekend has noted the compositions and placed before it. The compositions placed before it. For the avoidance of doubt, the governments of the Eastern Cape and Gauteng are not affected by these organizational arrangements of the ANC. The Comrade Premier of Gauteng, Comrade Panyaza, and the Comrade Premier of the Eastern Cape, Comrade Oscar Mabuyane, and the members of the executive councils in both provinces continue to discharge their constitutional responsibilities. The provincial legislatures continue to sit. The work of the state continues. The provincial task team in each province will carry the ANC through the local government elections and will, at the earliest procedurally ripe moment, convene the postponed provincial conference in the ordinary course. On the regional ANC conference season, Mangaung as last, Mangaung Regional Conference will have to tick all the boxes in terms of its sitting. If not, it will be evaluated by the National Executive Committee deployees together with the province in terms of the suitability of that conference. If it does not sit, it will sit after the elections. On the Integrity Commission report, and that work has been undertaken, and the report will be placed before the Secretary General today in relation to that conference. On the Integrity Commission report, the NEC received and considered the report of the African National Congress Integrity Commission on matters concerning 5 named comrades. The NEC thanks and salutes the members of the Integrity Commission, which stand at the core of the ANC's renewal program and at the core of the upholding of ethical conduct and good governance from within our ranks. The NEC fully endorsed the report of the Integrity Commission and its recommendations on each of the comrades named. Further to that endorsement, the NEC resolved to take an additional step. The NEC shall refer all 5 matters to the National Disciplinary Committee of the ANC for action under the constitutional disciplinary process of the ANC, with the NEC itself serving as the complainant. The Office of the Secretary General will give effect to the resolution in the ordinary course. The 5 comrades whose matters have been referred to the National Disciplinary Committee with the NEC as the complainant are Comrade Sisisi Tolashe, Comrade Bheki Cele, Comrade Mkwane, Comrade Kalipa, and Comrade Zungu. The constitutional disciplinary process will run in the ordinary course. The National Executive Committee commends in the strongest terms the ANC Integrity Commission for the depth, the fearlessness, and the discipline with which it has discharged its mandate with the ANC. The Integrity Commission is the conscience of the ANC. Its work, performed without favor and without fear, is one of the principal instruments by which the ANC renews itself and holds itself to the standard the people of South Africa expect of it. The ANC places on record its profound appreciation to the chairperson of the Integrity Commission and to every commissioner who has served the ANC and the country through this organ of self-correction. On the tripartite alliance and the so-called Conference of the Left, the ANC reaffirms, as the NEC has reaffirmed in every sitting since the founding of the tripartite alliance, the relationship between the ANC and the South African Communist Party and the broader alliance of the ANC, the SACP, the Congress of South African Trade Unions, and SANCO. The alliance has stood the test of time. The alliance has stood the test of personalities. The alliance has been founded since its analytical articulation at Morogoro in 1969 and reaffirmed at Kabwe in 1985 on the principle of unity and struggle against the enemy of the people. The relationship between the components of the alliance is dialectical and complementary. The ANC is the leading force of the broad National Liberation Front. The South African Communist Party carries the vanguard role of the working class within the front. That is the position of the ANC it has carried since 1969, and that is the position the ANC carries today. On the so-called Conference of the Left convened by the SACP from Friday, 29 May in Boksburg, the ANC was invited to participate. The ANC, after careful deliberation in its National Executive Committee meeting, chose to stay away. The ANC resolved, the National Executive Committee resolved to support the position not to attend this conference. The ANC will not participate in this conference. We have, however, invited the leadership of the SACP to a principal-level engagement on the underlying questions in the standing discipline of the alliance. We say openly to our country, the ANC does not consider this convening to be a conference of the left. The composition is itself the political argument, a gathering that proposes to seat chambers of commerce alongside the Bolshevik Party, the Umkhonto weSizwe Party alongside AZAPO, business formations alongside trade unions, is not a left formation in any received meaning of the term. It is a coalition of negation, united by what it stands against, namely the ANC in government, and unable to articulate the positive program by which the working class and the people will advance under its banner. It is a political project dressed in theoretical clothing. The ANC notes with seriousness the matter deserves that the convening forces have chosen to associate themselves at this gathering with formations whose principal leadership figures were identified by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, the Zondo Commission, as central to the wrecking of South African institutions. The ANC built the South African Revenue Service, the National Prosecuting Authority, the Hawks, the State Security Agency, Eskom, Transnet, and the public procurement system across the state. The ANC places that association on the public record. The alliance stands. The ANC remains the center of the broad National Liberation Front and of the broad democratic and patriotic forces of our republic. The work of this period is the work of the National Democratic Revolution. The answer is in every branch general meeting, in every ward, in every municipality, and in every street of the republic in which the ANC has stood, stands, and will stand. The ANC is at work on the story of our country that it deserves. On the story our country deserves. The NEC reflected in this meeting on the gap that exists between the objective record of progress in the living conditions of South Africans over the past 3 decades and the lived experience of many of our people today. Both readings are real. The objective record carries the story of millions of houses delivered, of millions of additional South Africans connected to piped water and to electricity, of the National Health Insurance Act now in lawful implementation, of free education at our schools and at our TVET colleges, of one of the largest social grant systems on the African continent. The lived experience is shaped by the cost of living, by unemployment, by crime, and by corruption. Every one of this is real, and every one of this the ANC reads carefully. The NEC has directed the communications work of the ANC to carry both readings into the country at the same time. We do not deny the lived experience of our people. We do not concede the objective record of what has been built since 1994. The honest conversation with our people is the conversation that holds both at once, not one at the exclusive to the other, as it happens in the national debate in our country. The emphasis is failure, 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 but it does not say this much also has been done. On bereavements, the NEC observed a moment of silence for Comrade Bushimape, former Premier of the Northwest Province and a cadre of the ANC, a long and faithful member of the African National Congress and standing in the ANC. We have conveyed and directed our message through our Deputy President to the family and to the mourners who were at the funeral in the past weekend. NEC also observed a moment of silence for all comrades whose passing has been recorded in the period under review. The campaign rhythm to 4th November. Members of the media, the work of every branch and every region will now converge on preparing for local government elections. The ANC carries into this period the standing inheritance of its canon, the Freedom Charter, on which the ANC has rested for over 7 decades, at which we shall again commemorate on Freedom Charter Day, this 26 June 2026. The strategy and tactics tradition from Rogoro, 1969, through Kabwe, 1985, through to the National General Council-based document of 2025, the NDR as the strategic objective, the broad National Liberation Front as the alliance through which we carry the movement, the discipline of the cadre as the instrument by which the line of march is held. And this is what we then characterize as to be what will be the campaign rhythm to the 4th of November 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for that statement. At this point, I will turn to yourselves, colleagues, and looking forward to your questions. Okay, could I just see more hands there? Okay, I'll start on the right. The gentleman, if you could just identify your media house and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Lunga from the just one. How?
It's the suit, Lunga. Sorry.
Just on the issue of the application for mayorship, how do you receive that? Is there maybe names that are coming from other political parties that you maybe don't mention them, but other people that are coming from other political parties that would have applied to the mayoral candidates of the ANC? Then secondly, on the issue of Kariba, what exactly was it taken to the Integrity Commission for and why was it taken to the DC? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go, just behind you. I think it's Feria.
Thank you very much. Feria Hapuji from the Daily Maverick. May I please check whether the NEC resolved that regional secretaries of the party may not hold positions in government, that they can't have government jobs, must focus on party affairs? And secondly, are you able to tell us exactly what charges were faced by the 5 individuals in relation to the Integrity Commission? And then could you tell us how many people, and perhaps their names, applied from outside to be mayors of the ANC citizen towns? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I proceed in the same row, SABC.
What is the main thrust of rejecting to go to the particular conference of the left, noting that in a province like KwaZulu-Natal, you were in an NK party that will, excuse my language, totally obliterate you at the polls, noting that you didn't want to vote in Sontos, Ward 2, but noting that in 2024, in that district alone, the second biggest voting district, you only want to think you go to a conference of the left to engage with other political parties that you may ultimately need at the polls post these elections that are upcoming. On the issue with the protests on March, are you stating as the ANC that you support the process? Because right now we are not clear whether you support or against. Are you for these particular protests that are currently happening? Thank you.
Thank you. Next to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Koleko from the Sunday Times. On the local government front, SG, is the party with the search for mayoral candidates outside the party's ranks? Is the ANC not concerned about the perception it may create that you no longer have confidence in the caliber of candidates that you have groomed as the party? Secondly, how are you planning to convince ANC structures, branches to back import candidates? And thirdly, how do you plan to hold people that you are now going to bring in as mayoral candidates? How do you plan to hold them accountable if they are not card-carrying members and that they don't subscribe to your constitution via discipline? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to just stay there, this side. Yeah, please go ahead. ENCA.
I just want to understand why you missed the 5-day deadline to submit the names of nomination of nominees who will be in the impeachment committee. Does this give credence to the weekend reports suggesting that there was a disagreement between yourself as the Secretary General and the chief? Also, you accused some of the civic organizations of hate speech and all other things. You also accused the particularly private sector of employing illegal immigrants. What blame does the ANC government have given the fact that it is the primary duty of the government to secure our borders? In all this immigration mess, what amount of blame do you take as the ANC? Then lastly, you also say there will be thousands of inspectors and labor inspectors. Is this not reactionary if you look at the fact that the complaints have always been there? It's as if you are only realizing this as a problem now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't see any hand this side, so I will move this side to this side. I'll start with yourself, my brother. No? Okay, yeah.
Well, thank you, Silva Sevilla from UFM. Staying on the immigration issue, you mentioned that about 10,000 inspectors will be deployed by the presidency through Department of Labor. When do you expect to start the process, and when do you expect to have completed? This could be a long process.
Okay, thank you. We move on.
Good afternoon, SG. Writing here from Netwerk 24. SG, just a couple of questions from my side. Where's the line between being patriotic and being xenophobic on this issue of illegal immigration? Because the organizations are arguing that they are putting South Africans first. And then just on March, the leader of that group described the current situation as they basically war on this illegal immigration issue. Is that characterization correct, SG? And how do you see that? Do you think the ANC will be heard by at the ballot box by this illegal immigration issue and its stance? And then just on the ANC in Gauteng, what still needs to be done for the staff team to be removed here in Gauteng? Do you not trust the Premier Panyaza Lesotho enough to lead this province and the structure of the ANC? Or what still needs to be done for the staff team to be removed? And then just on the Pala issue, did the President have any message for the NEC members, or maybe thanking them for the support that has been given on that issue? Thank you, SG.
Thank you very much. I think we're done with this round. And I'm going to hand over to the Secretary General.
No, thank you very much for the questions. Lunga, Mail and Guardian, on the application for mayors. First, if you want to become a mayor, you are a good South African, you agree with the ANC policies and support the ANC, being a citizen, you will equally accept membership of the ANC. And you will avail yourself. And on the basis of that, you will then be considered for participation. This has happened in all our processes of selecting councillors, particularly at ward level. We started this in the last 2 elections. All our councillor selection processes involve what is called community participation. So this is not new. So we've got people who are councillors in our communities who are a true embodiment of people's consultation and engagement in South Africa. And this happens under the banner of the African National Congress. They have embraced fully the ANC, and the ANC have gone to community, and the community says, we want this candidate to be our candidate under the banner of our vehicle called the African National Congress. And that's what has happened. So we are following the same pattern when it comes to mayors. But with regard to mayors now, it is something new. We're introducing what is called, by mandate of the NGC and the NEC, central control of mayors. If you look at the budgets of the country, in particular the metros and the secondary cities, is huge. And that is what shapes the local economy in the different provinces. So you will need a person who have gone through the eye of the needle with all capabilities that that individual can possess to run a city like Johannesburg, rather than just leave it to chance. And that is why we infused centrality, popular participation, but at the same time, headhunting that look also to people who've got skills and capacity to run these cities and drive development and service delivery in those cities. And that's what we are doing, and in approaching this election. Of course, it is something that is not, far-fetched. It is based on experience. When you are an incumbent and you have been leading, you learn from both your weaknesses and successes and embrace them in the new pathway of doing things. We believe that we need to take control and take it very seriously as to who becomes the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. Not for any political purpose like populism or anything, but we know the vehicle will remain the African National Congress. But at the end of the day, who becomes the mayor, the qualities of that person, and all of that are key. And that is why it was said that...
It's 16 minutes after midday. You're watching live pictures from the Chili House, the ANC's headquarters, where the Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, is giving the outcomes of the most recent NEC meeting. As expected, he's touched on a wide range of issues. Perhaps we'll just hone in on one of them, and that has to do with the mushrooming of those March and March demonstrations. Fikile Mbalula saying they understand the concerns that have been raised, but has cautioned the organizers against what he's calling a third force trying to infiltrate potentially that genuine concern and therefore ultimately destabilize the country. Here's a direct quote. He says, "We do not deny the lived experience of our people." We'll continue listening into that. He's also spoken, of course, around the local government elections, saying that the NEC is now fully united and is focused on the 4th of November, which is when you and I are expected to go to the polls. More on that, without a doubt, throughout the course of the afternoon. Hello, by the way, you're still watching The Agenda. I'm Ayanda Ngati, and we start with breaking news. President Cyril Ramaphosa